And I'll go ahead and admit people since it's 4:30. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GetSmART Learning Series, where this series today is meeting the emotional needs of youth through the arts. I am Tanja Enoch with the Arkansas Arts Council, and I'll be the moderator this evening. And we have with us Martha Sandven, and she is a nationally recognized teacher, mentor, and playwright, and she is the 2020 Governor's Arts Awards recipient for the Breakfast Club Arts Program in Fayetteville. She is the founder, and I will let her elaborate on her experiences and recognitions and let her conduct the workshop. Welcome, Martha, and welcome everyone to this series.
Well, welcome and thank you so much for having me. I'm Martha Sandven. I'm coming to you from a newly sunny day here in West Fork, Arkansas, and I'm very thankful to be with you today, even if it's virtual. Hopefully this will be the first of many times that we can learn together and work together. I'm going to go ahead and share my Google Slides and with you. They kind of help keep me on track. Today, I'm going to offer a workshop for you all called Meeting the Emotional Needs of Youth Through the Arts. If you are like me and you are around young people, you know that this is a topic that is really calling for our attention. And I'll start, like I said, by introducing myself just a little bit. I have been working with arts integration since 1995. I am a published and produced playwright, and I have worked with young people all around the country, but my focus has really been on young people at risk, and specifically young people, adolescents who might have 3 or more risk factors in their lives, looking at both how to build connection between those young people and their communities, and also working with those young people to help them develop skills for life, school, and work through the visual and performing arts. So currently I am teaching at the college level. So I'm an instructor at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and I teach educational psychology and also arts integration at the master's level, and a required course for undergraduate education majors, which is called Creativity and Innovation in Daily Practice. And so that's my day job, so to speak. And then I also consult with various individuals and arts organizations. I see Alyssa Wilson here from Arkansas A+ Schools. Welcome, Alyssa. I'm having a wonderful time working with them on after-school arts programming for elementary students in Little Rock right now. So we're getting that going. And then I also, as mentioned before, founded and run an after-school arts integration program for kids at risk that is called the Breakfast Club. And the kids named it that because it was their feeling that the club was a place where everybody fits in and everybody matters, just like the kids in the John Hughes film all those many years ago. So having said that, I am very curious about who you are. So if you are comfortable unmuting yourself, if you would just share your preferred name, kind of your position that you're currently working, and the ages that you work with the most, so that I can try and be responsive to that during the workshop today. Is it Kirsten?
Kirsten.
Kirsten, do you mind starting?
Sure, no problem. So my name is Kirsten. I live outside of Chicago. I am a graduate student at DePaul, and I'm studying for a graduate certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages. And I'm very interested in working with immigrant and refugee adolescents. And I started developing my own curriculum, which would be an interrelated arts approach to teaching English with social emotional learning at its core. So I saw your event and I'm just super interested in what you're doing.
Well, excellent. I think, and I know someone I need to connect you with at some point.
Oh,
So
great.
make sure that you shoot me an email
Okay.
and I'll follow up. I need to connect you with Stephanie Flynn, who works with newcomers and is an arts integrationist.
Oh,
and
that's fabulous.
yeah, so you
Where do
need
I
to
find
connect
your
with
email?
Stephanie. It'll be on the slideshow. I'm going to share the slide deck with everybody today.
Okay,
so
great.
that everybody has it. It's kind of like the Zoom version of the packet that you take home, right, and stick on the shelf. And hopefully you look at it again so that it's more useful. Alyssa, will you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa Wilson. I'm the executive director for Arkansas A+, which is a statewide organization through the University of Arkansas. We reach out to schools across the state and bring arts integrated and really the A+ model to schools, whether that's whole school or we're branching out and doing more teacher offerings that anybody can join. So we have member schools and yeah, we're excited to be here. We love working with Martha and excited to see the presentation.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hi, Scarlett. It's good to see you. I'm sorry you had to drive in the bad weather today. Will you go next?
Sure. My name is Scarlett Sims. I'm the Artist Services Manager for the Arkansas Arts Council, and we are so excited to have you guys all here today. The Arkansas Arts Council is really putting in a lot of effort to beef up its GetSmART Learning Series program, and we are focusing on educators and bringing more educators to the arts and vice versa. So thank you so much for being here. Feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat if you don't want to speak, or if you are extroverts, go for it. We also have this handy dandy little reaction symbol at the bottom of the page, and feel free to use that. And if you have any questions, make sure you can email me. I put my email in the chat function, and this is a great time to be able to network and connect and really improve the arts and education across Arkansas. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Scarlett. Someone with rights at the end of their name, which is awesome. I'm guessing we have a writer in our midst. Would you go next?
Hey everybody, it's the poet, the artist, the creator, and energy curator, Drika Wrights. It's good to be here today. I'm super excited. I formerly worked with the Arkansas Arts Council, and I definitely want to jump on because I'm really big on arts integrated learning. So hey Scarlett, hey Janet. Thank y'all for putting this on. When I read your bio, Martha, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely have to tune in. I know I might be able to learn something. You know, I feel like this is a full circle moment too with Alyssa here. You know, I first got introduced to like arts integrated learning by way of Thea Foundation when they were doing A+. So that's super cool to be in this space now. But
awesome.
As I stated, I am a poet, and I use poetry as a way to address social emotional learning and to help increase comprehension and communication skills with youth. I always say that poetry is the cheapest form of therapy. So I always just love to use it as a way to not only facilitate self-expression for our youth, but to help them increase their skill levels in academics.
Excellent. What a treat. Okay. Janet, will you go next?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Janet Perkins. I was on the staff of the Arkansas Arts Council, so I just retired. So I love coming back and sitting in on the GetSmARTs. And so hello, Jerika, Scarlett, and Tanja, my ex-co-worker. So I'm just glad to be in this space. And I was very interested in the subject matter for this GetSmART. So that's the reason I'm here. And so I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us, We have an all-star cast today. Like, I feel like this is a who's who on the screen. I want to take a snapshot, put it on my wall. That's awesome. Okay, Summer, are you up for it? I know it can be a lot to unmute and everything. There she is.
No, it's
Hi.
fine. Good afternoon. This is my rainy day, no makeup look, so I apologize. Just literally 5 minutes ago, my internet was out, so I'm just happy to have internet right now to be able to listen to everyone. Summer Prado. I'm living in the Little Rock area. I am a mental health therapist, specialized in addictions, but I work with a variety of people from children all the way up to geriatrics. So basically, I love integrating either music or art of some form. I work with a lot of people who have trauma, a history of trauma, whether that's from medical trauma, from either having a bypass surgery or from abuse. Or from things that they've done while they were in their heavy stage of addiction. So I have just found that art really helps break that barrier and lower the resistance of the patients that I work with. And so if I can learn more about how to add the art and music while I'm doing other forms of therapy, then yeah, that's why I'm here, to learn.
Well, Summer, you just really validated the second half of my presentation today, because I was fretting about what to do, and I have a feeling that what we're going to do during the second half might be particularly generative for you, and I hope that that's the case.
Good. Wonderful. Thank you.
You bet. Is it Neff? You never know with the names on the screen. You know, sometimes.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello?
Apparently there's.
You're not cooperating.
Bummer. Okay.
I had to pull over. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're
I'm
fine.
listening in, everyone. My name is Neff Langford. I have a nonprofit. It's called Alliance of Arts. My husband and I teach dance, and he is a music major, and he's getting his doctorate right now, and he's teaching music, and we come together for a camp. And in this camp, it's a hybrid camp every summer, and we're building an online program so that Tuesdays and Thursdays, students are with certified teachers, and we're filling in the gap from, that summer gap, throughout the, they're having fun and being with their friends and family. So we come together to increase test scores through the arts. They're excited about a big performance this year will be at Juneteenth. And they get excited about it, and they forget that they're learning and learning mathematics and learning ELA while they're kind of in a game form, making it fun for them still. And then we come in person on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and either they go to band or they go to dance.
That's outstanding. Can you tell us the name of the camp program one more time before you get back on the road?
Okay, it's Alliance of Art.
Alliance of Art.
And we have a summer arts intensive every summer.
Excellent. All right. Did I miss anybody? Is there anyone else who needs to introduce themselves besides the guy with the hairdryer? All right. Okay, well then, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be sharing this slide deck with Scarlett so that she can send it out to everybody who's here today. And that way you can go through it. You can use the links that are on it. There's links to videos, links to other resources. Here's the goals of our workshop today. As Alyssa knows, I I tend to be a little ambitious. So today I'm going to introduce you to 2 different arts integration approaches that can be used to help build self-esteem, build self-efficacy, reflect on trauma, come up with ways to cope with trauma and move on from trauma in pro-social ways. One is a performing arts strategy called experiential theater. Please raise your hand emoji or whatever it's called if you're familiar with experiential theater. So that'll be new for everybody. And then the second is a visual art strategy called zines. We're going to look at a visual art integration method, which again supports emotional growth and development of empathy and can be used to explore different topics particularly that can be heavy or potentially explosive or tender. So I'm really hoping to empower you all with some practical ideas that you can implement with diverse students and diverse groups of people, and connect you with some resources. And then hopefully by the end, if we have enough time, I really do want to gather lingering questions or curiosities that you have so that Scarlett, the Arts Council, and myself, we can address some of those topics or curiosities in future PD sessions. So if you got here today because there was something specific that brought you to this session, drop it in the chat. If you feel like you've already covered it, then thank you all for your hearty introductions. But if there is something specific that's on your mind, we'd love to hear about it. So I'm going to begin today with just a really quick primer on arts integration. This is something that I would usually spend a good 45 minutes to an hour on. So I apologize in advance. You're definitely getting like the full speed ahead version. So we're going to use today the Kennedy Center's definition of arts integration, which is arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. So the concept is your participants are makers, they are creators. So just like our dynamic poet on the screen with us today, the people involved in arts integration are not just enhancing their life with the art, they actually themselves are developing art skills and they are practicing art forms. So arts enhancement, which is also wonderful, it's not necessarily what we're working on today in our workshop. Arts enhancement might look, for our friends from the Alliance of Art, it might look like watching a dance performance that goes with the story that you're reading, right? Our local dancers on the screen understand that that's enhancement and it's great. But what if instead, like our future PhD colleague who was mentioned, we're using body movements, including shape or speed or direction to recreate part of a story. So that's really where we're getting creative. We're integrating the art and we're working on the story at the same time that we're working on our abilities as dancers. And there's some other examples here, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. So again, enhancement is awesome. So enhancing my bowl of noodles with a fork and a spoon is awesome. Like my noodles are great, but it's really nice to have a fork and a spoon to enhance the dining experience. But what if I try integrating my spoon and my fork? So if I integrate my spoon and my fork, I elevate the potential of both and I end up with a spork, which is one of my very favorite examples of integration. So we're improving usability and we're improving application of both the fork and the spoon, but we're starting to think differently. And when we do arts integration, we want to think differently about what we're working on, whether it's content or whether it's a skill, so that we're bringing that development of an art form to that learning. So of course, if we have a spork and we want to integrate with a spork, one of my favorite examples of using a spork and then using arts integration, let's say we take a visual art and design skill such as using shape, color, and texture to convey meaning, what might that integration look like? So it might look like this, right? So here I have my spork, but I also have design elements and visual art elements. So I've elevated the spork, and I've also elevated my use of design and color and texture and dimension. And here, of course, is Forky from Pixar's Toy Story 4. Try saying that a few times fast. One more example just for the dog lovers out there. Do I have any dog lovers? Send me a thumb or a heart. Okay, we do. So here we go. Dogs enhance my life. They aren't allowed in my Zoom room when I'm Zooming, but as you can see, we have beautiful enhancement here. But what if we integrate these enhancements? If I integrate a golden retriever and a poodle, what's my integration that I get? You can drop it in the chat because you're all so clever. But yeah, I get a golden doodle. So that, I mean, is that a beautiful integration or what? So, and then if I want to pursue an evolving artistic objective with my golden doodle, I can integrate the art of extreme dog grooming, which I have to admit is something that I learned about when I was on lockdown at the beginning of COVID. And here's what you get. So it is a truly actually an art form, extreme dog grooming. And we have the lovely golden doodle here.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can everybody see the screen? You have to.
I can see it.
You can't see it?
Oh, it's me. I'm the problem. I had it on the wrong screen. Sorry.
Drika, stop it. Okay. Thank you.
You good? You're good now, though? Give me a thumbs up if you're good, Drika. You're good?
Yeah.
You can see the golden doodle that looks like Yoda?
Yes.
Okay, this is a fully integrated golden doodle. Okay, so now we're going to move on. Are there any confusions or questions about the difference between arts integration and arts enhancement before I move on? Because that was, like I said, like an hour's worth of presentation in 2 minutes. We're good. Okay, then we're moving forward. So what we want to think about today is we want to think in an artistic way, we want to think in an integrated way, or what I like to call an artful way. So for example, we're going to start with our first strategy today, which is called experiential theater. And so we're going to have a content knowledge or skill on this side of our diagram, and then artistic knowledge or skill on this side of the diagram, and figure out what project goes in the middle. So we're starting with an example from writing or the teaching of writing, whether that would be in a traditional English class, or it could be in it could be in the school counselor's room, or it could be in your social studies class. It could be writing for any purpose, but our skill would be write using concrete details. So those details that really get our senses going, those juicy words that make us really connect with the writing. And then we're going to look at our artistic knowledge or skill. We're going to look at playwriting, including dialogue and stage directions. And actually, we're also going to have some acting involved. So this arts integration strategy is called experiential theater. And experiential theater is a type of theater experience that involves everybody in the room. So it typically is set up with everyone in a circle. These are my students. These are 7th and 8th graders. And everybody, the audience, so to speak, or the folks experiencing the theater, are in a circle in, just a big open space. And the audience members join in the action of theater when they are prompted. There's a person in the middle. So right here you can see Julius. He's got his script. They have written a script, and I'm going to show you how that works here in a moment. And their script is told entirely in past tense. And the reason that's super important is that when we are engaging the audience members around the circle in our story that we're telling, we don't want to necessarily open ourselves up to the risk of improvisation. So this is not an improvisational style of theater. It's a style of theater in which the play has already been written, the events have already been decided upon, and the audience members are experiencing the story with the narrator or with the playwright. And so at some point during experiential theater, everyone participates vocally or physically or both. And I will say to you that I have, like I said, been doing this since 1995. Experiential theater is the only arts integration strategy that I have 100% involvement in by students every single time. It is the single one. And we can talk about why. So I'm going to share an example with you from my classroom today, just to give this some context, and then I'll give you all some space to think about what this might look like for you. But for this particular example, I was teaching a book called The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963 by Christopher Paul Curtis. It is a historical fiction novel. It is about a family named the Watsons. They are a middle-class Black family from Flint, Michigan, and they have 3 children. And the oldest child, Byron, is getting himself into trouble as he's getting into his early teenage years. Kenny, who is 10 years old, narrates the story. And then Joetta, who is 5 years old, everybody loves, and she's kind of along for the story. But the family becomes so concerned about their son, who they feel is becoming a juvenile delinquent, that they've decided he needs to spend some time with his very strict grandma down in Birmingham, Alabama. So they all get in their car and they drive to Birmingham in 1963. So we read the very first chapter of this book, and of course, as you can see, I have diverse students in my classroom, but we really didn't necessarily understand where Kenny was coming from as a 10-year-old in 1963, as a young Black man, as a kid who was growing up during such civil unrest, and also as a family that was separated between kind of the northern parts of their family and the very southern parts of their family. So what we did was, after we read the first chapter, which is called The Weird Watsons, that's what Kenny calls his family, we wrote pieces about our own families. And we did those through experiential theater. And every single student wrote a 1-page script. And I'm going to show you what those look like here in a second. And they stood in the middle of the circle and they narrated their script. And then they would gesture to people around the circle. So maybe I was gesturing to Alyssa and I would do this to her, and she rises from her chair and she joins me in the circle, and I give her cues of what I need her to do. And if she's feeling uncomfortable, I stand close to her. I repeat to her what she needs to do or say so that she feels comfortable. And then when I'm finished with her participation, then I might do something like this to just let her know that it's time for her to go sit back down in the circle. If I wanted everyone to have a reaction, I might gesture around to the whole circle and gesture that we should smile or we should clap, whatever our reaction is that's appropriate for the story that we're telling. And of course, we've established in advance that we are honoring the writer, we are honoring their story, and we are helping them to tell their story. It is not a story to be hijacked. It is not a story to be mocked. Each of us is responsible for our own story. So here's a classroom example. So when you write your script, this is me talking to my students, it's for you to follow. You're the one who's going to be following your script. You don't have to memorize it. You can have it right there. And just as a side note, I also, for my students, because I have a lot of language learners and I have a lot of low readers, I would also have their script up on a projection screen, nice and big in the room, so that if they needed to see those words bigger, they were there. And some students even wanted to add, some of my language learners like to add little bits of graphics to their screen, to what's on the screen, to give some visual cues to their colleagues who are going to join in the play. So over here we have facilitator. That means the person whose story it is. The first thing here, which is not in italics, is the thing that the facilitator says aloud. And then the next thing here, these are the experiential stage directions, and they're in italics. So again, for my young people, they're also learning some literacy skills when it comes to using Microsoft Word or using Google, not Google Forms, Google Docs. And these words here that are in italics, these words tell you what you're supposed to do to involve the audience. So right here, I might say, Miss Martha, and I gesture to Kirsten, and she stands. And I say, Miss Martha was a teacher in room 124. She loved to collect Pez candy dispensers. And then I invite a student to stand and play the part of Miss Martha for what's going to happen next. So after each of the lines, again, this is me speaking to my students, you're going to type what the audience member or members should say. And then I give them some examples, like you invite a student to stand, you invite a student to mimic a certain action, right, that they're doing, that they indicate that a student should do something, or they wait, or they cup their ear to indicate something the audience should do in terms of a sound or something that someone's supposed to say. And this is important for my actors and my narrators, that we need to be patient. We have to help prompt each other, and we have to demonstrate a line of dialogue. So again, with my language learners, with my introverts, if I've asked them, if I've suggested, and then she says, and I give a line, I might need to say that more than once just to build that confidence and clarity for my participant. And as you can see here, we have full physical commitment here in experiential theater. Brooklyn's right here with her script, and Sharia's over here fully involved, and you can see Ben back here with his big smile. And we eventually had to make it so that everybody had to have a chance before someone could get to go twice, because the more student stories that were told, the more we wanted to be involved in each other's stories. So here's an example that I gave to my students. So I said, so part of our scripts were that the students, just as Kenny in the book calls his family the Weird Watsons, students had to use alliteration, which is something that our resident poet here on the screen with us today understands quite well. And so my family, the Sandvens, mine are the strange Sandvens, and this is actually a true story. So the first thing that I do is I write a paragraph, and this gives my students the chance to really work on those concrete details. What are those? How am I triggering a sensory response in my audience, which then also in terms of acting, developing our playwriting and our acting abilities, that translates to something that an actor can do instead of just something an actor thinks, right? These end up being very actable, communicable details when my students are using concrete details. So my paragraph very quickly says, my family is lovable but strange. My mom is strange because of some of the things she likes to eat. Instead of eating a McMuffin from McDonald's, she likes to make a McStevie. That's her name, is Stevie. That means that she puts mayonnaise, cheese, and ham on a muffin and broils it in the oven. Instead of eating a regular bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, she makes a BLT that also has peanut butter on it. She is lovable, but she is strange. That is one reason that my family is the strange Sandvens. So I have my students start with a script like this, something very doable. For my language learners, I might even give them sentence frames. So the first few words, my family is blank but blank, and they can fill those in. I might give them a word bank that they can use. We might look up, we might use an anchor chart with characteristics of people's personalities. And then after we've written our paragraphs, then we turn them into a script that looks like this. And for when I had to go to virtual teaching, we actually did experiential theater over Zoom, and we had students, when they would volunteer to participate, then I would ask them to turn their video on so that only the students who had their video on would be playing, and it just was a matter of me doing a pretty decent job with clicking people in and out, which I got better at as time went on. But I had their scripts fit on a single Google slide. So you can see here, this Google slide has 6 what are called prompts in experiential theater. So I start with, once there was a mom named Mrs. Sandven, and she was strange. And then I gesture to someone to stand up and play my mom. And then I move on to the next line. Even though she was strange, people loved her. And then I do this. And everybody in the room claps and applauds for the person playing my mom. So we're all participating in that. She loved to make her favorite sandwich. So I indicate to a student what they should do. Depending on who I've asked to, with my nonverbal gestures, my nonverbal communication to play my mom, they may have already launched into doing something on their own. But because, again, the script is in past tense, as you'll notice, the person can't just all of a sudden do something else as my mom. They're having to listen to what I'm saying that my mom did. So she loved to make her favorite sandwich. She got up and went to the cabinet and the refrigerator, and so on and so forth. So if you are doing this in a school setting, you may want a rubric. And so this is an example of the rubric that I used for my students so that they would just have an understanding of the expectation of experiential theater. And you'll notice here that presentation in class, which included their 5 points for being the facilitator and presenting their story, and then 5 points for participating in someone else's story, I only put that at 10 points. And the reason I did that was so that if you did all of these other things, but for whatever reason, you were not in a place emotionally or physically to participate in the final performance of experiential theater, you still could earn a 40 out of 50, and you were still 80% there, and you still could feel like you really did something, because you did. But as I said, everybody ended up participating. So my outcomes for my particular group of students, here's what I saw in them. I saw improved confidence in them. After this experience, we were never the same. We were more willing to try things. We were more willing to present in class. We're more willing to talk to each other, work with different groups of people. Our comprehension of text went up. After we worked on this book, we went on to studying poetry by Langston Hughes. And I'll tell you what, we sure understood Langston Hughes and his storytelling a lot better after we had really worked with this language and really worked with concrete details and figurative language through experiential theater. Everybody improved their writing. I think one of the reasons that it improved our writing is, frankly, it wasn't a 5-paragraph essay. It didn't feel like, a 1,000-pound writing assignment. It was 6 prompts, that were built from a single paragraph that was 5 to 7 sentences long, and everybody felt like that was doable. We got better at listening to each other because this particular arts integrated activity involves listening for the words, but also listening for the nonverbal cues and paying attention with your whole body. And so many of our students live from here up, right? They're only engaged in the screen. And this is a really magical way for kids to get involved with their whole body and their whole self without feeling self-conscious about it. We strengthened our relationships, learning about each other's families. We learned that one of us in the room was raised by 2 deaf parents. So I had a student who was a hearing student whose parents at home were deaf, and I did not know that until this assignment because, of course, my communication with the parents had been completely on email, and it had never occurred to me. We learned about students who had immigrated much more recently than we all had known, and we learned some of their immigration stories. That was incredibly empowering for them, and I definitely saw empathy for those students going up, and I saw kind of teasing about how they pronounce different words or struggled with English. I saw the teasing go down. And then just more trust. You know, when you are telling your own story through experiential theater and you have colleagues in class or in group who are respecting your story by participating in it, it helps you trust those people, and you're more likely to rely on them and work with them again. So that is our first strategy. And so what I'd love to do before I move on to our next strategy is take any questions or entertain any discussion. And if you don't want to unmute, please drop it in the chat. Kirsten, what's on your mind?
I have a couple questions. So because I'm interested in students who are learning English, you said you have some of those students. I'm wondering if you allow them to use their home language at all. That's my first question. And then my second question is about trauma, because I wonder, I'm very interested in self-expression for the students, but I'm somewhat concerned that as a teacher, and I don't have a background, you know, as a psychologist, or like, what do you do if something really traumatic comes up? And, you know, as a teacher, maybe you're not qualified to kind of support the student in that way. So I have those two questions.
Thank you. Those are both very important questions, and I'm glad that you brought them both up. So the first question about using native language. Absolutely. And so what I typically introduce my students at the beginning of the year to the author Gary Soto. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Kirsten, but Gary Soto, he uses a mix of Spanish and English in his poetry and in his short stories. And so that demystifies for my students the idea of combining languages in their own writing throughout the school year. And so when we get to a project like this, they know that that's fine. And what we will do, though, is particularly if there are idiomatic phrases that they're going to use in their language, we may introduce those so that everybody can know what those are going to be when they come up in a script. And it also kind of gives everybody that feeling of kind of having insider information. They know what the student's going to be including. So does that help answer that part of the question? So I think normalizing the involvement of multiple languages at the beginning of the time that you're working with a group is very important. And Gary Soto is not the only one who does that with his writing. There's numerous writers and playwrights and novelists and poets who do that, but he's incredibly accessible to junior high age people. And so he's my go-to guy for 7th and 8th graders. And in terms of your second question, I learned the hard way. Many years ago, I had a student who had become addicted to porn as an 8th grader, and I had not screened his arts integration project before it was going to be shared with the class. And I was very fortunate, and he was very fortunate that particular project was happening during the 4th quarter of the school year, and I had already done a lot of work to build community and trust in that particular classroom of 24 people. But I only had to learn that lesson once. And so I am not willing to do this kind of project unless I have the time to read every single person's paragraph before they start working on a script. I'm just not. After that particular experience, which was just horrifying for me as a teacher, it was horrifying for me that that was going on with his life and he had no help. But it was also horrifying to me that he ended up presenting it to the entire class, and then I had 23 other students in the room who were hearing about it. And I mean, I couldn't get to my administrator's office fast enough. I couldn't get to the counseling office fast enough. And we were able to get him some help. And he has gone on to graduate from high school and is living a pretty successful life. But it has been something that it wasn't just a struggle for him then, it ended up being an ongoing struggle. So my recommendation, and I teach pre-service teachers, this is the same thing I say to them. If you are going to have students share a piece of writing, you better make the time to read it first. And if you're up until 2 o'clock in the morning because you assigned that, that's on you. You're up until 2 o'clock in the morning. The other thing too is you'll have students tell on themselves so that you learn that they need help. So I had a student on an arts integrated project. She was turning in a draft of something for me to look at, which is my standard. And on the back of it, she said, "Today I found out my mom has breast cancer." And again, if I hadn't made that commitment to do the reading before we do the makery and the production and the sharing, I wouldn't have known that. And so I was able to get her connected with the counselor. And I was also able to reach out to her mom, and her mom ended up, she's doing very well. It's been about 12 years ago and her mom's fine. But does that answer your question, Kirsten? Summer, what you got?
Well, you actually just answered the question that I had was, when you get a case that they have trauma, do you end up referring them to a therapist, or y'all just send them to y'all's school counselor and then they take it from there, or how does that work?
Well, for me, I have, I'm Miss Martha and I run the after school program too. So I usually end up knowing the majority of kids in any building where I'm working. So depending on the kid, like a lot of kids don't want to just be passed off to a counselor. Like if you're the one that they're investing in, you're the one they're trusting with their story, there's a reason why they're coming to you. Otherwise they would have gone to the counselor in the first place. So
Right.
I mean, I'm not the kind of person who's like, here's your slip, go to the counselor's office. I'm the kind of person who like gets to the counselor's office and I'm like, listen, I learned something about summer during third period today. I've got my planning period during fifth. I think it would be great if Summer had lunch in my room today. And then if we could set up 15 minutes to talk to you together, that would be great. And I'll check with the student first and say, look, I'm more than happy to go with you and sit down. I can't give you all the resources that you need, but I'm here to support you. Will you go to the counselor with me? And then it's something we're doing together. And so it's more of a gradual release than it is just me being like, oh, well, that's too hefty for me. I'm sending you down the hallway,
Mm-hmm.
Is that
I like to hear that. Yes. The fact that you're not just dropping it off and saying, no, I can't handle that, because the kids, if they've gone through something that heavy, they need a fluid transition for extra support. The more support, the better, so that's good that you do that.
Well, and it's also, my students have, and I have some of them here. My students have interactive notebooks. Again, not digital, right? So they have interactive notebooks all year long with me. And if they write about something that they don't want me to read because they're just getting something off their chest, they can fold down a page in their notebook and I won't read that. I know that they needed a place to put something, but they don't want me to read it. On the other hand, if they have something that they want me to read, they'll stick a Post-it note in there. And that lets me know there's something that this kid has put in their notebook that they want me to notice. And I mean, I don't have children of my own. Other people's kids are my kids. And, I'm the teacher who gets a text when somebody's pregnant. That's me, but I'm willing to do that. I can't do all the counseling work, but I'll tell you what, I got a heck of a network at this point after over 25 years of doing it. So I think it's really important to know your resources, know who you can go to, and and provide those resources for your kids too.
I really
Scarlett.
like that that journal. That's very creative. Reminds me of the movie Freedom Writers. Where they have them writing in the book.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. You bet.
okay.
You bet. Scarlett.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. It's kind one of them is along that vein. When it comes to child abuse, is that something that you handle a lot when you have this kind of, I guess, assignment or event, workshop? I don't know.
I mean, I think all of us are seeing, I mean, even more of this since the pandemic started. I mean, all of us in the schools, we are all mandated reporters. Sometimes we see evidence of things before we hear it from a kid. So we have to follow those legal processes when we see evidence, or when we have a kid tell us about something. And you know, I can't say enough about school counselors, people who work for Ozark Guidance, people who work hotlines, people who work for the Sheriff's Department, DHS. I mean, we don't have enough of them for our kids. But I see, although this kind of work does open students up to sharing trauma, it also opens traumatized people up to sharing joy. And you know, my kids who are in Breakfast Club, man, they have a lot of trauma in their life, but creating art and doing theater together or sculpture or dance or whatever we're doing, like that's a place where they find joy and they find connection and they find meaning and they
And that gives me
although they have broken parts, they get together and they become whole, you know, when they're working with each other.
Yeah, that got me to my second question. Is this almost an anti-bullying sort of, or can it be cultivated to be an anti-bullying?
Absolutely. Because again, those are the outcomes, right? So my content isn't about bullying. My content is about telling a story about myself. But the outcome is, like, when I get to know Drika better and she gets to know me better, why do we need to be all about hating on each other? We don't have to, because we know each other better, right? So like, she helped me tell my story. I help her tell her story. We got to laugh about it, or maybe I fell down and I was clumsy, or maybe she did an awesome job playing my mom and cracked me up, like whatever it is. All of a sudden, when I run into her crew in the bathroom and one of her crews starts giving me the business, she's like, oh no, that's Martha. She's in third period. She's fine. Whatever, you know? So that happens anyway. Does that make sense? But it's not necessarily the focus of what we're doing, but it's the outcome of what we're doing. Kind of just like lifting up the joy and improving the vibe. Kirsten?
So what you're describing, the programs are after school?
Well, I work in, so like this particular example was through an English language arts curriculum, right? With me as the department chair of English. But my kids in my after school program all of them have a lot of trauma in their lives. And so in that area of my life, I got 100% people with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
In the regular school day, we all have certain levels of trauma, whether it's because of national events, international events, pandemic, poverty, right? But in my after school group, that's a very high risk group.
Okay.
And that's the group that Kirsten, I was telling you, and I dropped Stephanie's email in the chat.
Yeah.
Stephanie Flynn is the co-sponsor of that group with me.
Okay. So I'm wondering, because I've read that a lot of English language learner students, they have a lot of responsibilities after school, usually like babysitting for siblings or working. And so I'm wondering, if it's an after school program, how do you get the kids to come, basically, simply?
So at the junior high level, we provide snacks and transportation. And free food and transportation goes a long way with parents. And we will even bag up some extra food for you to take home. So if we give you apples and Cheez-Its and fruit gummies and Capri Suns, we may pack up some extra and send it home to your family. If your parent's going to work second or third shift, you know, you're still getting home early enough that you can watch your siblings while they're going to do that. I will say our after school program at the junior high level, the way that we originally secured funding for that program was by pointing out that our language learners frequently have to double up or triple up on their literacy classes and their math classes, right? And so what happens is they lose visual and performing arts electives. So this is also a way to make sure that they are developing those skills and using those skills, which goes a long way to sell the parents, because the parents want their kids to have the best educational experience they can have. And so we're able to say to those parents, look, we're working on skills here that your child's not getting during the school day because they're at a disadvantage. They're losing those electives. Now at the high school program, we originally ordered buses, but by the time the kids are in high school, they love the program so much, they like coordinate their own car rider groups, and their parents are on. I mean, once the parents see what happens when their kids are involved, and like their kids no longer a frequent flyer in the office, and they're not in ISS, and they're not skipping school, and they're not, you know, their parents are like, yeah, get them to Breakfast Club. One more, and then I've got to move on to our next one. Drika, what you got for me?
Well,
Hey.
I'm so excited, filled with joy. I just love all that you're doing. I work in after school too, and I have a program that's called Think, Write, Speak, and the kids, they get to think, write, and actually perform. But something that I want to talk about too, with like the experiential theater, something that I have to always remember, because I'm wanting to touch them emotionally, you know, on an emotional level so much. Like I have to be mindful, like when you open up trauma, you know, after I work with you for a week, like if I've opened up that wound and then I just leave, like what does that do for a child? So in spaces where I'm only booked for a week to work with kids and I'm having them express themselves, I just want to say this out loud to, you know, we have to be mindful of making sure that we have support in place for them for when we leave. And something else, oh, go ahead.
Well, so I want to bring something up from, so my very first work, I developed a program in the inner city in Kansas City, Missouri called Chameleon Theater and Youth Development. And what we did was every program that we did had what we called an Act 2. Act 2 was where we brought in experts from whatever type of trauma that we knew we were going to probably open up. So for example, for several years, and this came from the kids, this is what the kids said they needed. For several years, we produced plays, musicals, and integrated arts projects on grief and loss. Because kids said, parents don't want to talk about it. Everybody wants to shove it under the rug. I'm coping with it. My friends are coping with it. I need help. But for us as artists and educators, we're like, we're not the ones who can take you to that next place you need to go with coping. So what we're going to do is, in our artistic environment that we've all become comfortable in, that we feel safe in, we're going to invite people from, in Kansas City, it was called the Grief and Loss Support Network. So we brought in counselors, therapists, you know, clergy, different folks who came into our environment with us, introduced themselves to the kids and said, here's how you get a hold of me. Here's who I am. Here's when I'm available. Here's my website. Here's my phone number. Here's when we're open. Here's when we're having a session for people your age, so that we were connecting those people, those experts, with our kids in our creative space. So it wasn't like I'm giving you, again, just like the hall pass, I'm not giving you somebody's business card and being like, sorry, writing workshop's over, call Ozark Guidance. Like, I'm not going to do that, you know?
See, and I really like that, because you have to have a great level of forethought, because that's something when I was younger, I had not considered. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I have to make sure I have those extra support systems in place for when I leave. And the last thing I want to ask, especially with experiential theater, you have a lot of kids who are scared. The kids that I work with, it's like they're terrified of their voices. I just know at home they're being told to shut up all the time. I don't know what it is, but I have kids who are so scared to like just get up and perform. And I'm usually really good at being able to bring it out of them to where they get to perform. But I wanted to ask you if there were any special techniques or things that you do to get kids to participate who are resistant.
Well, that's a great question, and we probably have a whole workshop on that. But I will, in fact, I know we could have a whole workshop on that. But I will tell you this: there's a couple of things. Number one, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. So you have to, when we're working with people, we have 3 positions of power that we can choose when we're working with them. Either we have more power, we have equal power, or we have less power. And 90% of the time when I'm working with my students, I have equal power with them. Like I put myself at their eye level, right? I speak, I give them any words that I'm going to use that might be considered fancy or academic words. I teach them those words before we're going to use those words so that they don't feel like I'm talking down to them. But when I have those students who don't want to open up or are risky, I go to a position of less power. I ask them to help me, and what I find is when I ask them to help me, when I say, I'm really struggling with this part of dialogue, or I don't really know what song to choose to go with this, or, I noticed that you're really good at drawing and my drawing stick figures is like pretty trashy. And I was wondering if you could help me out. Like that builds trust, right? And then it really encourages them to exercise their agency, because you're absolutely right. They may be getting the smackdown, whether it's from an older sibling or it's from parent, grandparent, whomever. But when I'm asking them for their expertise to help me out, and it's authentic, it's not fake, right? Because seriously, really, they really are kind of trashy, right? So when I'm asking them for their expertise and their help, they step up. They're like, Miss Martha, I got you. I'll help you out. And then I can turn and say, now, Drika, you help me out with this, right? Now I need you to help me out because we got that new girl and she does not want to participate. And she's sitting here watching you and you've been here a while. Can you please try today? Just help her, so it's a bit of again, it's strategic thinking. It has to be authentic. The kids can, smell a rat, and you're just going to break trust if you fake it. But is that helpful? No? Yes?
No.
Not sure?
No.
It is not helpful?
Now, could you repeat the last part?
Oh, I was just wondering if these ideas are helpful.
Oh, yes, they are helpful. And this computer is going kind of in and out. So I was trying to piece together what you said and make sense. But yeah, those points that you gave me, they do help. And thinking about the points of power, because that makes a difference too, when I'm working with students.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to go on to our next strategy. I wish we had more time together today, but I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can and still have it make meaning. So our next strategy is a visual art strategy. It does also involve some creative writing and sharing and communicating. And so we're going to look at, for example, something that a lot of adults aren't very good at right now, which is drafting a thesis statement, right? Creating an argument and then supporting it with evidence and reasoning, not just screaming. And our artistic skill, we're going to do creative writing with illustrations. We're going to use color, we're going to use shape, and we're going to use scale with purpose. So this strategy is called, it's a visual arts integration strategy, and it's called zines to share messages. And a zine is usually small. It's usually, this is actually one right here. A zine is usually small, it's foldable, it has a strong message. So you have something to say, and these were really popular in the 1990s. And people would photocopy them and leave them in public places, and you could find them on tables or in the bathroom or in the cafeteria or whatever. And so what I do is I use zines as a strategy to help people develop a strong way to say something. And it may be something you really want to say, but you don't want to say it out loud, but you can say it in a zine. So they're easy to share, they're easy to view and read, they're short, and it's a way to lift up some topics before bringing them into discussion. So these would be before a discussion, okay, before a journal entry, before a reflection. So here are the steps to creating a zine. So you may choose a topic for everybody to explore. So one of my examples today is going to be eliminate the R word. So eliminate the use of the word retarded, which is a topic that I've worked on with middle schoolers. And so we may all create zines about eliminate the R word. Or we may create zines a different time when everybody chooses their own topic, something they're feeling fiery about, something they really want to share a message about. And then we create the foldable, which we don't have time to do today, but I am here to tell you right now, everybody, I spent a little bit of time making a Loom video for you, and it's linked in the presentation so that you can learn exactly how to make this foldable. And I apologize in advance about the sound quality on the video, but it does show you exactly how to make this particular foldable. And then we establish what our visual art skills are that we want to elevate and develop. So for this particular activity, I usually do deliberate use of color, scale, and shape. We practice on big paper first. So before we're going to create our tiny little zine and make it small, we might practice on big paper and draft things and scratch them out and add things. And then we write and draw. And then here's the fun part. We share. Everybody shares their messages, but we do it silently. We might have some music playing, but we're not talking. And everybody's passing them. So like I pass mine to Alyssa's, and then she goes around and she passes the one that she got from me on to Summer. And then Summer gives her one that she got from Kirsten. And they're just floating around the workspace or floating around the room. And we're reading everybody's messages. So here's an example one for get rid of the R word. So as you can see, this particular foldable has 8 sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is all made from, believe it or not, a single piece of printer paper. So it says, get rid of the R word. There's no reason to use it. Some people use the R word to mean something is stupid or dumb. It is a label. No one likes to be labeled. That old video game is so R. It's my favorite though. Try using specific words to say what you mean. I like this new game more because of the cool dragons. You can have a conversation with somebody, maybe make a friend. I like the old game because it has my favorite music. Calling a person the R word is hurtful. That new kid is so R. The kid is thinking, I just want to fit in. If you hear it, you can stand up and say something. Does it make you feel good to be mean? Ignore him and sit with us. There is no reason to use the R word. Be kind. Say words to describe your ideas. Include others. Okay, this is an example from the after school program that I was mentioning. So this one would be everybody got to choose their own topics. And so this one is called It's Okay to Say Gay, which is really an issue right now with my high school students as they are hearing about legislation. They're hearing the entire state of Florida say that you're not supposed to say that you're gay. And so this comes from one of my high school students. So it's okay to say gay. I did not ever feel gay, but my best friend told me she was gay. I am so alone, she said. It is scary all the time. I felt awful. I wanted her to feel better. I said, I am not gay, but you can talk to me about it if you want. Really? Yes, you are safe with me. It is okay to say gay. So after you do the passing around, then I just have like a little sign. So this one says zines you want to talk about, go here, and there's a little place. So if there's ones that the students want to visit about and talk about, then they put them here, and then you can lead your discussion. And again, this goes back to kind of creating that culture, right? We need to make sure that we have norms for our discussion. We're not going to have crosstalk. There's going to be one person at a time sharing. We're going to listen without judgment. We're going to listen for understanding that ultimately, right, we're trying to drive connection, not disconnection. And so we understand that. Again, that goes back to the way that I try to create that atmosphere with my group at the very beginning of our work together. Really helps determine how these potentially dicey conversations can go. And I express my expectations and whatever my essential question is for the group. So if my essential question for the group is, how can you articulate an argument and back it up with evidence and details? If that's what I'm focused on, not having an argument, but creating an argument, creating a stand, having a stand, saying what you mean. And so literally have 4 minutes, but I want to know if I can stay on longer, but I don't know if the Arts Council just cuts us off.
The Arts Council does not just cut you off.
You just cut me off.
With power. No.
Oh, there you go. She's coming from a higher level of power. Okay, Scarlett. So questions or thoughts about zines?
I love the 90s, so I'm in.
There's actually a movie out that Amy Poehler directed called Moxie that's on Netflix right now. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but the first half's much better than the second half, which gets really problematic. But it is about 90s zine culture, and it is telling a fictional story about a high school where the young women were tired of being sexually assaulted and objectified, and that one of the girls develops a zine called Moxie that starts spreading the truth and the word of what's going on at the high school. So it might be worth a watch. The soundtrack's fun too. Okay, so here's longtime Breakfast Clubber Ben with his dragon here. We're currently working on a social justice Sculpey project, and I've put a link down here for you to watch. If you can, give yourself the joy of watching this 14-minute independent film about a student here in Fayetteville named South Walker. You will not regret it, I promise. And this is not a project I've got time to talk about today, but it's what we're working on right now. I have shared with you at the end here the link to the visual art standards. I'm always pulling those in when I'm doing arts integration, visual art, and then theater standards here. I didn't include music or dance because I didn't include those today in today's workshop, but they are about, out there for you. Here's a link to the Spread the Word to End the R Word if you're interested in that. And here's the famous video of me folding a zine so that you can learn how to do the foldable. And also I want to let you know, in the state of Arkansas, there is a 3-year free fellowship program called the AR Teacher Fellowship. It is a 3-year fellowship for secondary teachers right now, not available to elementary, but definitely available for secondary. And you meet about every 6 to 8 weeks, and he brings in national speakers and workshop presenters to teach and learn about different arts integration strategies. And then here's how to get a hold of me. So Can I go backwards? Any other issues that you want to explore, curiosities about arts integration, or questions for future workshops? If you will drop those in the chat for Scarlett and myself so that we know what you need. Or if there are colleagues you wish were here today and you feel like it would be worth it to work more with experiential theater or with zines, we'd love to hear it. So thank you all for being here today. Are there any lingering questions that you'd like me to answer right now? Oh, we lost somebody.
It's okay. I also, if you guys want to download the chat right now, and that saves up a lot of different things, you can always tap on the 3 dots in the chat function, and that will help you download the chats if that's what you're interested in. I'll go ahead and save this recording and then send it out probably tomorrow. So if you've registered, it'll go out to everyone, and it's only temporary because we do not want to steal our creatives' workshop and inventions, and basically we're helping you to create your own and use this information, but we also want to bring Martha back and pay her to create more arts and education opportunities. So if you do have any questions, you can email me at scarlett.sims@arkansas.gov, or you can, if you have ideas, you can email me again. The email I send out that has a presentation in it, it will also have a survey. If you would be kind enough to fill that out, that would be wonderful. Also, just how do we access the presentation? You will access it once we download it and make it live in the internet where the email links will exist. Anyway, yeah, I don't actually understand the internet, so it's like magic, but I'll give it to you magically.
Kirsten, were you able to open it?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And there's a link to it in the chat if you want to get that, but I've also emailed it to Scarlett so that she can email it to everybody.
Yeah. So when we send out the mass email, it'll have this recording, the presentation, and hopefully a survey. Also, maybe a link to some of the upcoming workshops. We do have another GetSmART workshop coming up that will help develop tools, like if you wanted to use art in math or arts in history, that kind of thing. So thank you very much for coming, and we sure appreciate it. Please let me know what you think. Thank you so much. Y'all have a really great evening.
Thanks so much. Kirsten, make sure you email me. And email Stephanie. She can talk to you about those newcomers.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to
See
meet you.
y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.